All right, welcome everyone to the Wizard of Radical Self-Respect. Today we have interview number 12 with Destiney. She's going to talk about overcoming a narcissistic relationship, and we're going to get into what the love bombing looked like, the valuing looked like, co-parenting with one, the back and forth of breaking up with one. So I'm very much looking forward to this conversation. Destiney, how are you today?
I am good. Thank you for asking. How are you?
Doing very well. I appreciate you coming on here and having the willingness to share your story because you are certainly not alone in this. There's a lot of people that are in this kind of situation right now, and I'm very excited to hear like how this went for you,
Mhm.
just so that people can learn from it, right?
Yeah.
Because it certainly wasn't something that you probably want repeated or anything like that, but probably lots of valuable lessons in here.
Yes. Yes.
So take us back to the beginning then. So when you first met this guy, was there a love bombing right away, or what did that part look like?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. In the beginning, the love bombing was actually really hard. It was strong. Like, when I first got together with him, I would have family members even ask me, "Are you crazy?" Um, you know, he's already telling you he loves you, and it's been a week. 2 weeks later, I was asked to marry. And I was just so blinded by the excitement and the charm and the love bomb, that he was giving, that I just didn't see what everybody else was seeing. So I felt,
So wait a second. He was saying this "I love you" stuff within a week.
yes,
Oh Lord! And your family and your friends were saying, "Hey, what's up with this? This seems a little crazy."
yes. They said it's a red flag. It's too fast.
Okay, yeah, I would agree. But what did you say? And what did you say to them?
Um, I kind of just said we're not crazy and it happens. I said, sometimes in life you just meet somebody and you just know. And that's how I felt. I felt like this was it. And I'm
Okay.
gonna do it.
So that's important to know because I think those rationalizations and justifications, they can get people in some big trouble. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, a lot of it's like a romantic justification
Hmm.
or like a soulmate justification. But narcissistic people, they're really good at exploiting those kinds of things. Like, oh, it's just romantic to rush in head over heels. If it's your soulmate, this is just how it goes.
Yep.
And the tricky part is sometimes things can be quick and they can work
Right.
sometimes. But to say that's the majority of times, I think would be way off base, right?
Hmm.
So with a narcissistic person, they're just doing this because it's just what they do. So you use the romantic justification. It's no, you don't understand. And I always say to people, when you're rationalizing like that, it's something to pay attention to when anybody does it. So you did that, and then how did things go from there?
They went pretty good. At first, I would say maybe for like a month or two. And then I noticed once I was taking the, marriage thing seriously, that's when things started to kind of dwindle down.
Hmm.
Was, me like, what are you doing? Why are you like not trying to save any money? If we're trying to get married next year and, stuff like that. My mom went out and bought a dress. So we literally did the whole thing, like the shoes, the dress. I mean, the gown, I have it all. So once that had happened and arguments and stuff started happening, he was telling family members where, well, I don't understand why she needs to have a fancy wedding. Like, I don't understand. But before that, he was selling me dreams and wanted the fancy
Right.
weddings. I was just very confused.
Sure. So how long into it did he actually propose to be married?
Um, I want to say it was like 2 weeks into our 2
2
weeks.
weeks in, he said, "I just know you're the one for me."
Yes.
Yeah, I
Yep.
mean, I could see where if someone's like hungry for some love, it's
Hmm.
like that's, I think it's a Bruce Springsteen song, everyone has a hungry heart. The narcissistic people, they know to pick up for the people that have a little bit of a hungry heart.
Hmm.
And yeah, that's how it can go. Because yeah, 2 weeks is pretty quick. And I bet you in the retrospect, you look back at it now and like, oh yeah, that was pretty quick. Like that was a little wild. But when you're in that thinking there, I can see how that could happen. And then I think it's interesting to note as well that when you said yes to the marriage, that is when a little bit of the devaluing started to happen there too. Once he realized he had you a little bit.
Yeah, looking back, I would say around there is kind of when it started to whittle, when like money be
Okay.
talk and stuff.
Okay. So it was financial stuff that kind of brought it to the forefront where he said, oh, you don't need that, like a big wedding. You don't need this. You don't need that.
Yeah, it was more of like a why can't she just go to the courthouse and marry me?
I see. Were there any other kinds of ways that he would devalue you, or was be like gaslighting and validating, or
Um, I don't know, like in the beginning it's hard to say, but like throughout there was like a lot. Like there's a lot of steps through like the 2 years that I kind of dealt with
right?
him. Looking all the way back, mm, it's hard to say right now. Looking like all the way back because I'm trying to remember all of that.
Okay. Was there a time when you became aware of what the situation was, and you're like, "Wow, okay, something's off here." What was that situation like for you? When did you finally figure out, okay, I might be dealing with someone who's more on the narcissistic side?
Well, that whole wedding situation is kind of, I didn't like necessarily open my eyes to it, but that was kind of like a de-whittling to me. Um, and then he would like, when we would argue, he would throw things in my face or to other people about like my past and things like that, which, so when we started talking, I had this ex-boyfriend and we weren't together, but we still lived together because he needed to move back to New Jersey, is where he was originally from. So I had told him, you don't have to leave yet. Take your time, save money, and go. But we were not together, like fully 100%, both single people. And this is when I kind of met the baby dad. So I had asked the baby dad at one point before we even got serious. I said, hey, I would like to meet up with you. And I needed to be honest with you about something before we went any further into this relationship and got serious. And that's exactly what we did. We met up and I told him the very honest truth. I said, I'm still living with an ex right now, but he's in the process of moving out. Do you think he cared? Absolutely not. He did
Hmm.
not care. He did not care. It was, oh, well, if you guys are broken up, it's fine. So we went about it. And that ex of mine literally was gone the next day. The very next day, he actually moved all of his stuff and he moved. Well, ever since then, once the de-whittling started, that marriage thing started, and arguments started, he would expose me and tell people how I was with my ex-boyfriend when I met him, but not telling people how I was honest with him and told him about that, if that makes sense.
Sure.
That's one thing that he de-whittled me about that still bothers me because he still does it to this day. Still to this day, he will go on and tell people how I'm a bad person because of that.
It's always interesting to note how they'll say they're okay with certain things in the beginning,
Mm-hmm.
and then a little time goes on, and then all of a sudden they're not okay with it anymore. You hear the same thing like with girls who are strippers, for example, where they'll meet a guy that they say, oh, they're completely fine with the girl doing that, and then a few months go by, 6 months go by, then all of a sudden it's completely the opposite. Oh, that's terrible. You shouldn't be doing that. So something that's pretty common with what they do. So was there ever a lot of like blow up fights for you guys? Was there a lot of gaslighting or other kinds of Just overall, not so pleasant times.
Oh yeah, lots, lots of blow-ups, big blow-ups.
What were those in regards to? Was some of them about that ex-boyfriend?
No. Um, just trying to talk to him in general. When I would try to just, hey, can I talk to you about something? It was immediately, what? What? What's the problem? What's
Mm,
up? So that would always start a big problem. And next thing you know, it was being blown up, or a lot of the blow ups would start with me just finding out more things about him and what he was actually doing that I didn't think he was doing.
right.
So this is when like the cheating gets involved, and other women and social media and stuff. That was one of our very main causes to a lot of our blowups.
I get you. So that's also an interesting thing to note there too. How people handle those important conversations, whether it's a disagreement, whether it's a boundary, whether it's just a conflict resolution.
Mhm.
How do they handle those important discussions? Because when they're really short, like he was, and dismissive, and they don't seem like they have the time for it, certainly not something to ignore.
Yeah.
Because if you can't handle those things, especially in the beginning, it's like, who's to say what makes someone think it's going to get better? Like, it's not, if they can't do it then in the beginning, it's not going to get better. So, again, these are all just to point out the things that if someone's in this kind of situation now, to pay attention to it, right?
Hmm.
To learn from your experience with it and say, yeah, if they're being dismissive and short like that in the beginning when you have a concern, yeah, it's not going to get better, more than likely, unless they go out of their way to try to make it better. And they go out of their way to try to get better, which oftentimes they just don't.
Yeah, they do it so much that you actually start to walk on eggshells.
Yeah.
So when you have a problem or you want to express a concern that you have, you almost like psych yourself out of it and just say, no, I'm not even going to say anything because he's going to fight with me and then he's going to leave
Right.
me.
Right. And that's them training you. That's them training you to fall in line, training you to not question, training you to not bring things up. And that's right where they want you. They want you second guessing yourself. They want you to not have a good belief in yourself because that's how you are more easily controlled.
Yeah.
And that's when they'll have more power over you too.
Mhm.
So throughout all of this, I guess, what are you telling yourself in these kind of situations? Like, oh, this is just how he is, or oh, there might be something wrong with me. What is your thought process in this?
A lot of both, actually, I think I would say. I would, have family members and friends, telling me like, stop being blind, like he's being like extremely narcissistic. And
Right.
if you can't even speak your mind to him, that's obviously a red flag and stuff like that. But I would just psych myself out and I would start saying, well, maybe I am being too much. Maybe
Okay.
I'm being crazy. Maybe I should just let it go, or just little things like that. I would definitely psych myself out.
Right. And that's important to know too, because I think that's what happens to a lot of people, right? They'll start agreeing with their assessment a little bit. Oh, maybe they're right.
Yeah, you
And
like give excuses as to why they are the way they are, is in which, for my example, I caught myself doing that a lot.
right. There's a good expression for that, dear.
Yeah.
Defend, excuse, explain, rationalize. If someone catches themselves doing that in regards to someone else's behavior, that's a problem.
Yeah.
So it's just some. I think I learned that in a book, either when I say no, I feel guilty, or no more Mr. Nice Guy, one or the other. But there's that saying in there where I think it's important for people to realize and recognize, yeah, if you're defending, excusing, explaining, or rationalizing someone's behavior consistently to
Yeah.
yourself or to others, probably an issue.
Hmm.
So, at what point did you get pregnant in this relationship?
Oh, quick. Very quick. And I want to say it was maybe within a month.
Oh, it's super quick.
Super quick. Yep.
But you're already 2 months engaged or 2 weeks engaged by then.
Yeah. So maybe it was like a little longer than a month. I just know it was quick. It was fast. Like as soon as we even started talking and getting into the relationship, is like it was like boom, it was there.
Okay. Now, do you think he did that on purpose, or
Yes.
because I've seen that go both ways too, where a lot of times they'll get a woman pregnant to trap them.
Yes. I actually have had conversations with him throughout the relationship and caught him saying little things like, I knew what I was doing with you. I knew
On that part of it, I don't really think that helps. I get you. So that's not very good, though, that he would do that for sure.
Yeah.
So not very good. So at what point? So you have a kid, I guess, within a year of knowing him,
Mm-hmm.
and so from that point on, did it get progressively worse from there, or what did it look like?
Yeah, I would say it got a little worse. Oh yeah. Yeah, definitely got a lot worse.
Well, when did the cheating happen, or when did that start?
Probably within a couple months in, we had gotten into a blow up. I don't remember necessarily what the blow up was about. I'm pretty sure it was about the sneakiness that he was doing. And I had left one night, and he told me about this woman that he was talking to before he was talking to me, and how she was very upset because he dropped her for me out of nowhere. She was very upset about that. But I never really understood. I never really got into it with him about that because, like I said in the beginning, I was love bombed. So, like, my whole focus was just him. Like, I didn't even care about,
Right.
other ones. And I had left, and I came back the next day, and I tried to talk it out with him. And we did. And then after we talked it out, he was like, I have to be honest with you about something. And I'm like, okay, you know what? Well, I hung out with somebody last night. Oh, okay, you did? So, like, what did you do? Nothing. We just hung out. That's all we did. I just picked her up and we went to the lake and we talked.
Interesting. So he told on himself in this regard.
He did, but he didn't tell the cheating part. So he made it seem like there was nothing going on, like they just talked. That's not what happened. Because,
So he was like a lie by omission.
yeah.
It is interesting that he would even bring it up at all in that regard.
Mm-hmm. That's the only time he's ever brought anything with another woman up. And I think it was because it was so soon into the relationship. And I found out a couple months after that by the actual woman that everything that he had told me was not true.
Oh, yeah? Like what? About the whole him hanging out with her?
Well, there was more to it. Like they did things, and he just made it seem like all they did was sit there and talk about me. That's exactly.
And that's still not good either way. I wouldn't say it's a good thing when you're going to be talking about who's going to be your baby's mom to another woman. Like that's not usually it's best to talk like with your partner, with somebody. If you're going to have a problem, you talk to them.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're going to talk to another woman about a problem you're having with your girl, not usually the best there.
Yeah. But I already knew, even when he told me that nothing had happened, that there was more to it, just because I could see how he was and how he acted on social media with his Snapchat, and just knowing of the past with the girl. I was like, there's no way. I said, you're lying. There's no way.
So what was he doing on Snapchat? Because I'm sure this is something that a lot of women have to deal with, and guys too, when it comes to women. But what were some of the sneaky tells of his social media usage?
Well, I could say in the beginning of our relationship, I remember having a conversation with him, and he had asked me how I was with having girlfriends. And I had said, I'm fine with that because I also have guy friends. Well, okay, my ex didn't like this. That's what he would say. My ex didn't like it. I wasn't allowed to have friends. I wasn't, allowed to do anything. Well, shortly into the relationship, I noticed on his social media that he was constantly all over females' social media, all over. I mean, like comments, pictures, telling them, how beautiful they are, giving them compliments. And then I started to hear about all the girls that he's been with, which were his friends, that I'm supposed to be okay with him being friends with, but he's been with them. So it was just a lot. The Snapchat was always replying to women's stories, saying sexy or beautiful or pictures
And
being.
you would see this, and you would see him doing this.
Yes, not in the beginning. In the beginning, I trusted it. In the beginning, I believed he wasn't doing anything because, like I said, I was okay with the girlfriends.
Right.
So I just figured he was just Snapchatting, some girlfriends. That's all I thought in the beginning, until I noticed the little signs how, he would start getting up in the morning, and instead of checking his Snapchat, which was from a girl's next to me, he would go into the bathroom.
Uh, and you see, that's a big thing there too, because I could see how a narcissistic person could twist some of this, and they'll say something like, well, it's good to have friends that are of the opposite sex. It's good
Yeah.
to be able to still remain friends with exes. And this is
Yeah.
what narcissistic people would say too, because I've known many, they like staying friends with their exes, but it's
Mhm.
really for them because they want them to use as a possible source of supply, right? They
Yeah.
want them still there just in case. I like having as a backup plan. But
Which, for what you just said, the girl that I found out that he went and hung out with, she was one of them that he was Snapchatting with all the time.
I'm sure. And that's the other thing too. Like, you're not going to tell your friends that are girls, "Oh, so beautiful, so sexy." Usually not. You
No.
not as a guy. Now, you
Yeah.
like very occasionally maybe you would say that to a girl you're just friends with, but consistently like that all the time, like, no. Like, where there's smoke, there's fire. That's
Yeah.
more flirting and disrespectful to you, honestly. Like,
Very.
I also consider that a soft triangulation too, because when you're on social media like that, and he's going to be hearting, telling all these girls how beautiful and hot they are, like, you see that, you can
Exactly.
potentially see that, and
Hmm.
it's subtly putting you and pinning you against that other person there. And it's one of those things where there's a little bit of plausible deniability in there too. Oh, it's just a heart. It's just a like. It's
That's
just
exactly.
this.
That's what he would always say.
Right. And that's because that's how they can minimize it. Right. That's how they can minimize it. But it does still have an impact, and it is still disrespectful, regardless of how they try to spin it.
And that's another thing that I tried to express to him definitely multiple times, that I didn't like it. I would just say, please, like, I'm asking you to just not do that anymore. I don't find respect in that, because I'm not doing that. And I feel like if I did that, you would probably have a rage,
Right.
you know, and he would just keep doing it, like, over and over and over again. It was like he didn't even care about my feelings at all.
Right. And that's the big thing to note there too. It's like, regardless of whether something is good like that across the board or not, if your partner has a problem with it, that should be enough. Like, if you care about your partner and you respect your partner, that should be all that matters. Like, if they don't like something, then you act accordingly. If
Absolutely.
you don't act accordingly and you try to find a way to rationalize or excuse what you're doing, I mean, what is that? It's just showing that you don't care that much about your current partner. You don't care what their thoughts and feelings are. You just want to keep on doing what you want to do.
Yep.
So, again, if someone is out there and they hear this kind of thing now, it's disrespectful, and their actions are showing you what their priorities are. Their
Yep.
actions are showing you what they care about. And if they're clearly showing, yeah, they don't care about your feelings when you have a problem with it, and they still keep on doing it anyway.
Hmm.
And it sounds simple, but like, in the moment, people can talk themselves out of it and say, oh, maybe they got a point. It is just this. It is just that.
Yep.
And that's where the conditioning and the gaslighting and the invalidating, it all comes into play, because it builds up, right? They train you to start thinking that way, to second guess yourself, so that when this thing comes up, you're already used to second guessing yourself. You're already used to being invalidated. So it's just another invalidation.
Yep. Absolutely.
So, at what point did you first break up with him? Like how long was that into the relationship?
Um, Probably just maybe like a month or two after that situation with the other woman.
And this
I
was
mean,
after you had the kid already, or no?
no, oh no, we broke up. I mean, multiple times during my pregnancy.
Okay.
Yeah, I had to move out because I was living with him. So the town that I currently live in is actually 40 minutes from him, and I had to move my life to where he was because that was convenient for him because where I am is too far of a drive for him. So I had to pack my stuff and move out of his house and move back to my town multiple times. Multiple.
So he couldn't be asked to do much for you, but he wanted you to keep on bending and contorting yourself to him.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yep.
And it's all these little things, right? The little things, they go a far way. Where if someone's not willing to compromise, if someone's not willing to work with you a little bit,
Hmm.
certainly not something to ignore.
Yes. And another thing, he would like really rub it in my face that I wouldn't put my daughter into school or switch my jobs into the town that he was in. Um, and the main reason why I wouldn't do that is because if I'm constantly, having to move out, why would I switch my kids' school all the way 40 minutes away when I'm already going to have to move out anyways?
I
That's
got you.
my head on that. So it was always like a manipulating, gaslighting type of thing that he would do to me. Well, you don't compromise. And I'm like, well, away in my head, I'm like, what? I don't want to get stuck because then, either way, I got to drive far.
So, like I said, they're always very good at twisting and distorting. It's
Hmm.
slippery, is what I say, where like there's a way to decode what they're doing.
Yeah.
And like once you see it, you can begin to guesstimate how they might try to do it.
Yeah.
But that's often what they'll try to do. They'll find the exceptions, they'll find a way that you normally wouldn't think of. And they'll just even like, for example, self-help statements or memes, they'll find a way to twist those things to fit their agenda.
Yeah.
And something that could, and almost anything, they could find a way to fit their agenda the way they want it to be fit.
Yeah.
So there's nothing that they couldn't try to do that with. They can try to do it with anything.
Hmm.
And spiritual principles too.
It used to hurt pretty badly too, cut deep because, we would argue and he would just be like, well, what do you do for me? Or, what do you do to make this relationship work? And it comes down to those little things like, well, I travel 45 minutes to work and then all the way back home every single day just so I can live where you're living.
Right.
That was like, what do you mean? What do you do for me? So I kind of took that as an insult a little bit. Like, that's kind of rude.
Sure. Because it was rude.
Yeah.
But like I said, when he's not going to be able to take any accountability. He's not going to take any responsibility. He's not going to try to work with you at all. And no matter what you do, that's how it's going to go. Like, and that's, I think, important to note too, is that no matter what you did, the results would have always been the same. Like, there would be a way for something to go wrong one way or another. So you broke up several times during the pregnancy, and then you finally do have the child.
Yes.
And so that was, I guess, how long ago is that now?
Well, she's 17 months now, so a little over a year ago, I had the.
Okay. And so once the kid was born, did you break up pretty soon after that, or?
Uh, Maybe. I'm trying to remember at that point. Yeah, I want to say we did. We were actually broken up a week before I even had the baby. Alola.
Roller coaster ride. I think this is important to note then too, is that when you would take him back, what was your thought process when you would take him back?
Um, that he was going to change. It was always, I believe that he was going to change because that's what he would always say, is that he
Okay.
to change. Things are going to be better, just it was like I don't know, just like I would just psych myself out real bad. And I almost just feel like I had to, almost in a way for the daughter as well,
Mhm.
especially once we had the baby. It was like I wanted that family, and he knew I wanted that family and that I did love him so much that it was just easy for him to just creep back in, as simple as a hey. He knew it was that easy.
Yeah, so you had that like fantasy in your brain about what you wanted something to look like, and he knew that. And so he would really exploit that to try to manipulate you, it sounds like.
Because I told him before I even got pregnant, or I think this is when I did found out I was pregnant. I was nervous because I didn't want no more kids. Like I just wanted the one that I had, and I didn't have the best experience with the first one, so I didn't want to go through that again. So I was like, if we're gonna do this, like like we have to be like a family. Like, are you sure? Are you ready? And oh, he was ready. He was sure. So in my head, it's like, well, that's what I wanted. I didn't want to do this if I didn't have it.
Right. And this is something I don't talk too much about, but what were the good things about this guy? Because it's not all bad usually, right? Usually there's some good things.
Right.
What were his redeeming qualities? What were the parts of him that really like made you fall in love with him?
I would say like the affection. He was really good at the affection. He was good at making you feel like you were the only one, I guess, in a way. The excitement. There was always excitement. There was always, just
Mm.
always doing something together. The little things that he would say, like, I trust you and I don't trust nobody. And just, I don't know. I would just say,
Little things to make you feel special. Plus
yeah,
and plus a little adventure.
yeah. Because he was pretty good at making me feel special. I wouldn't say that he wasn't. He was good at it. But and then when he didn't want me to feel special anymore, that's when it would crash.
Sure. I mean that makes sense too. Because I know a lot of people would say that like narcissistic people, they don't really love, right? They'll use and they like how people make them feel or what others can do for them. But in that regard, like
Yeah,
making you feel special, it's like that's kind of a different category, right? Because that's not about their love. It's more about how it made you feel, right?
yeah,
And that part, it did make you feel that way. And
yeah,
this could be that's what's tricky about it, right? Because yeah, maybe his love was not real, but your feelings were still real.
yeah,
Like it still made you feel truly special. So it's just something to note and for other people in this situation to help them to see through it a little bit. Like, yeah, you might feel that way and those feelings are real, but
yeah.
the the cause of those feelings, the person, that is the mirage, right? That's just
Yes. And he was
that.
really good at making me feel special, like really loved when he wanted to use it for something.
Right. That
Those,
makes sense.
yes, that's when the highlights were, is when he needed something.
So once the kid was born, like he would use the fact that you wanted that the family life, he would use that against you, and then he would know how to turn on the charm and the love bombing when he wanted something from you or needed something from you.
Mhm.
So when was the a breakup after that? Like, was there a big final straw breakup at some point?
Um, yes. There was a big final straw breakup when he decided to up and move to a completely different state and not even ask if I was okay with it or anything. He just didn't care about how I felt at all, not even a little bit. So once he did that and he moved, that was definitely the biggest breakup I would say that we had.
So he moved how far away?
To Florida.
And but you're in what, Pennsylvania or New York?
New York. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and it's the father of your child. And he's
Right.
like, "Oh yeah, I'm just gonna move to Florida." And oh well.
Yes. And he blamed it on work because he had a friend out there who wanted him to come out there and start like a business out there with him when that just wasn't it. It was more of just move to Florida. You could still have your wife and girls on the side. That's
Yeah, I can't say I'm surprised
yeah.
because ultimately, with the kids and them, I see it from two different ways, right? One way is a narcissistic parent, they see their children as an extension of themselves, and they'll really try to get supply from their children and get them to live up to an ideal.
Mm-hmm.
The other side, though, is when they really don't care about the children at all, and they'll
Right.
really only care about them to get to you and
Yeah.
to use you or to manipulate you. So, which of these versions was he more so?
I feel like it was more to get to me,
Right.
I want to say, because I never felt like he never really wanted to spend time with our daughter unless I was kind of back in the picture or he was using her to get back in with me because that was the easiest way to do it.
Using the kids as a pawn. That's
Yeah.
another thing to note is that when they'll do that, because when they want something, then all of a sudden they'll really care and
Yeah.
they'll take an interest. But you got to always think, what's the end goal that they might be trying to get at here?
Yeah. Yeah.
So after all that happened here, would you?
Well, we after that had happened, we got back together probably a few months after that because he moved back. So that was the biggest breakup for us because we've never really been like solid steady since then. But once he came back, we got back together. But the only reason why he came back is because he needed me to get him back. So he kind of like snuck his way back in, made me feel special all over again because he needed me because he didn't have no help to get back home. So I had the love bombing phase all over again. I felt very special, like, he's going to change this time. I mean, he really played it. He played it very, very well. Um he'll use God in church
Ah,
like hardcore, like the
so he's religious.
yeah.
Well, quote unquote religious, I should probably say.
Yes, he would do the whole, I'm starting to go to church now and I got baptized and, sending me, just quotes about, godly and spiritual and stuff like that to get me like back in. And I'm thinking, okay, maybe he's being a better person now. So I helped him get back to New York. And then we had another blow up. And that's really when it like ended for real.
Okay. What's prompted that last blow up there?
Um, Girls. Just it was always the same thing. It was always girls, or if I had an issue. I do know that night that caused the fight. Um, we had a problem with girls, and I was having a rough night with the baby, which I'm not allowed to have a rough night with a
Hmm.
baby. I can't feel overwhelmed or nothing. I'm not allowed. So I was very overwhelmed that night and I probably had a little bit of an attitude and I went to go get her bottle and I kind of just like kind of slammed the bottle down on the table type of thing. Just tired, just very overwhelmed. And I went back into the bedroom and I was trying to feed her and put her back to sleep and stuff and look over, he's like in the closet getting all dressed and stuff and I was like, "What are you doing?" And he was like, "I'm done. I'm done. This is it. I'm done." And I'm like, "What are you what?" Just because I felt overwhelmed, it was too much for him, so he had to leave.
Sounds like just an excuse to avoid accountability and responsibility.
Yes. Yes.
So I think another thing to note there as well, the love bombing Hoovers, because they can really act like they've changed. I've heard narcissistic people apologize in the Hoovers. I've heard them act like though they're a changed person. They'll tell you everything that you want to hear,
Hmm.
but it's really all just to get you to take them back. It's really just to get you to cave on your boundary or whatever it was. And then almost always, like they go back. They go back to how it was before, and the cycle just repeats faster, if anything. So I've yet to see a case. The only times I don't see that is as if there's like a massive life change, where like say someone was an alcoholic or an addict or something, and then they stop drinking or they
Hmm.
stop doing drugs. Maybe then I would be more prone to believe some of the things a person like that would say.
Yeah.
But minus a big change like that, or like extensive therapy or something big, it's like no. Chances are they did not change.
Right.
And the reason I'm mentioning this is because this upcoming Thursday, I'll be interviewing Dr. Mark Entenson. He specializes in treating narcissists, which
Okay.
would probably flabbergast some people because they would say, oh, well, that's an oxymoron, they might say. Narcissists don't ever get help. Narcissists don't ever admit they have a problem, which isn't technically true. There
Right.
are some people who do admit it, and there are some people that might try to do something about the problem.
Hmm.
But regardless, they gotta try to do something, right? And if someone hasn't done something different,
Yeah.
you can't expect their behaviors to be any different. And
Right.
that's I say all that to say that part where if someone hasn't made a big change, those empty promises are just that. They're empty promises.
Yeah.
So I would have to see a lot of action to believe any sort of love bombing Hoover,
Yeah.
period. And another big way to know is this: how would they respond to you saying no? Like, because a true apology would be whether you accept it or not, they're okay with it. But
Yeah.
you know when they're not okay, if they're not okay with you not accepting it, that's generally how you know they were trying to manipulate you. But
Right.
like if they were truly sorry, they would say, "Okay, I'm sorry. I don't expect you to take me back. I don't expect you to do this, but this is how I feel. I'm sorry." But
Hmm.
that's rarely how it goes. What it usually goes is like if you don't accept the apology, they'll be all upset and they'll be butthurt and
Hmm.
they'll act all apologetic until they don't get what they want. And then
Yeah.
their true colors shine through again.
Yep. Hmm.
So I know it's a long spiel about just to watch out for the love bombing Hoovers there.
Yeah.
So, but you have to co-parent. How do you handle co-parenting now?
Not very well. Um, on my end alone, it's really hard just because it's hard to even want to be nice. At this
Sure.
point, it takes a lot. It really does. It takes a lot. I don't necessarily go through him a lot. I'll go through his grandma.
That's probably smart.
Yeah. So she's the one who actually helps me the most when she takes the baby. He will go and take her when he feels like it. So it's not like we have a co-parenting where he takes her every other weekend or, he picks her up, he drops her off type of thing. No, it's always me taking her to the grandmother and having to drive 45 minutes back home.
Because your daughter's 17 months old now.
Yeah.
So it's basically just started talking recently, right? They could probably say some words.
Yeah.
So it'll be a whole different can of worms like once like school starts. And then it'll be all different kinds of issues. But right now, it's really just taking care of an infant, pretty much, right? Infant about to be a toddler. And
Yeah.
that's a different stage of parenting than
Yeah.
when the kid's going to be going to school.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
So on one hand, it might be easier now, especially since you have to just deal with the grandmother. That probably helps a little bit.
Yeah.
But then I guess because a lot of narcissistic parents too, they can be pretty good with the kids when the kid just looks up to them like a god.
Yeah.
and doesn't think for themselves at all, right? But when the kid can finally start disagreeing with the parent a little bit and
Mhm.
have its own thoughts, that's when the narcissistic parents might have some trouble because
Right.
they'll be like, uh-oh, this guy's not just like a mirror image of me now,
Yeah.
or not just going to mirror and match like what my thoughts are. And when they have their own autonomy, they don't handle that well sometimes.
Right. Right. No, I agree.
So I've seen that a lot. I mean, and borderlines can do that too a little bit, where they can love bomb the infants and
Hmm.
then devalue the kids and then like discard the teenagers to adults. I've
Yeah.
heard that too. And it's like, yeah, I can see how it happens, but it's certainly not good. And it's certainly how the pattern continues.
Yeah. I definitely think he's very good at like love bombing our child. He uses social media in a way to make him look like he's
Right.
this father, because every time
Oh, I'm sure.
she can walk up to him and he's recording it and posting it on his social media. It's just drives me nuts, actually.
Well, I mean, I think a lot of narcissistic parents still do that to get supply
Yeah,
from posting their kids.
that's exactly what he's doing.
And so they like the attention and the admiration that, because who doesn't like kids, right? So
Yeah,
you post a kid, a cute little kid, and all of a sudden, oh, that guy, so adorable, so cute, looks just like you, blah, 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 blah. But they just soak up all that attention. They
ab-
soak up all the admiration. And once you get privy to it, like you can see it.
oh yeah,
Like, and I see parents doing this all the time. It's not, and it might not even be ones that I would consider true NPD. They might just be like a little more on the narcissistic side, but they still do it.
yeah,
They still do it, and they soak up all the attention and clout that the kids will give them. But you know what I think to them? I think to myself, does anyone ever stop to think like, does this kid maybe not want to be on social media? Like when he's or she's 14, 15, 20, whatever, like, do you think they would want to be on social media their whole lives? I don't even think people stop to ask themselves the question
right. Probably
because
not.
it's not about that. It's
Mm,
about them. It's about, oh, this is going to give me supply now. Never mind if the kid when he's older isn't going to like this, but
right.
it's giving me supply now.
Yeah.
But I mean, it can be about balance. It's like some pictures are fine, but pictures all day, every day, no, that's a different story.
Yeah. And it's not just with my kid either. It's with all of his kids. He does this.
Oh, he's got money, other kids.
Oh yeah.
I didn't know that part. How
Yeah.
many other kids does he have?
Um, three, and then one that he doesn't claim.
Oh, he doesn't claim.
Hmm.
Why does he not claim it? So he doesn't have to pay like child support or something?
No, actually, we were broken up one time for 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks. And he went around telling, everybody how he's living in his car because my ex kicked me out. He would post stuff like that on social media. And I'm just like, I
Playing
did
the victim.
I didn't never said he had to live in his car. I never said he couldn't come home. Ever. Never, ever, ever said any of that. Like I'm not the type of person to do that. I'm not gonna let somebody live in their car.
Right.
We might argue, we might be mad at each other, but you could still come home. I never said you couldn't come home.
Right.
Well, he went and slept with some other girl in those 2 weeks process that we weren't together. And he got her pregnant. And then we had gotten back together. So when we broke up, it was around Thanksgiving time. And I had found out, a bunch of stuff that he was doing, in which that's another thing I had asked him, please, when we break up, because we know we're probably going to get back together, instead of going to sleep with other people, can you just take some time maybe to yourself for a couple of weeks so we can like breathe and then maybe come back and talk about it, instead of going and sleeping with other women and getting on social media and adding this girl and this girl and this girl and this girl and this girl.
Hmm.
But he would keep doing it over and over and over again. Well, he ended up sleeping with this woman. And then around Christmas time, he wanted me back. He wanted to come home because, it's the holidays, people get probably lonely.
Right.
And I accepted it back. And I remember asking him if he was with anybody, because he normally is. And he said no. He said, nope, I was not with anybody the whole time. The whole couple weeks that we weren't together, all I thought about was you. And if you would have just texted me and said, come home, I would have ran to you. And no matter what I do, I can't stop thinking about you. And I knew we were going to get back together, and just all of those things that I want to hear. And come to find out, when he moved to Florida, I had a woman reach out to me and tell me that there was a woman pregnant and it was his kid.
So it sounds like he gets off literally and figuratively on getting women pregnant right away.
Yes, absolutely. And that's one of the things that I tell people. That's like, I almost feel like it's a goal of his, is to trap you.
Yeah.
Or, I mean, it comes like when it's a woman that he wants, that has everything that he needs. I definitely do feel as though he wants to trap you with that. But in the case with this woman, I don't think that he wanted to trap her, but he doesn't care where he's sticking it. If that makes sense.
Well, think of it like this. Say you're a narcissistic guy.
Mm-hmm.
Any woman you get pregnant and they actually have the kid, that's going to be a woman connected to you
Mm-hmm.
for life.
Yes.
So even if she hates you,
Mm-hmm.
you're still connected. I mean,
Yeah.
she might try to get you out of his life, perhaps, but unless he's been abusive or like hurt the kids or something, I don't even think she'd be able to do that technically. So for him, he thinks, well, this is just a possible source of supply now for
Mm-hmm.
all these baby mamas that I got for life. I
Yeah.
kind of think that's probably how he would see it.
Yeah. I think he gets off on it for sure.
Right. Because here's the other part of it. When you have a kid with somebody, that is a special thing.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it's an abusive character, like it's still a special connection when you have a kid with somebody.
Yeah.
And so I think that probably plays a part too.
And it started to, come to me, especially after hearing about a bunch of other women that he was with. And, these women would also tell me how he very quickly told them how he wanted to put a ring on their finger and he wanted to put a baby in them.
Sure.
There was multiple girls that told me. He would ask, there's one woman that he asked if she was ovulating. Like for me, persistent, he made sure I drank water. When he met me, it was all about water. He had to drink water.
Drink water.
Yes.
What? So that you would be more fertile?
Yes. I got that. That's kind of what I learned with him. Looking back, I'm just like, because why so much water? And then I remember him telling me a story how him and his ex wanted to have a child, but she wasn't getting pregnant. So they ended up going to the doctor. And I guess the doctor told them to drink more water and be.
It is interesting because on one hand, you would think they wouldn't want more responsibility of having children because that kind of goes against their selfish nature. But when you see it again as no, it's just more supply for them from many different babies' moms, it makes sense in that direction. But
Yeah.
certainly not the nuts and bolts of actually being a parent, right?
Yeah.
Because that's usually not the part they really like. Like
Yeah.
that's the nuisance for them is that part. The
Mm-hmm.
part they would enjoy is the supply. So do you talk to the other babies' moms at all? Because I've heard like sometimes women have like a little what's the word for it? A bond with the other baby's moms or ex-girlfriends of a narcissistic person. So do you have that kind of situation?
Yes. I wouldn't say I have like a strong bond with them. Um, his first baby mom, I would say we me and her probably have a stronger bond. She has told me things, and which helped me because I've also been through the same things that she has been through. So like a little things would like open my eyes, or she was very comforting sometimes because I would be upset, and it's like you kind of need to talk to somebody who's been through it.
Sure.
So she would kind of help me through my emotions sometimes.
That
And
helps a lot.
yeah, she was helpful. I mean, she's hated. by some of the family members, but
By your
they,
family?
not my family, no, his.
Okay.
Just because of situations that they've been through. So like they wouldn't like that I am friendly with her, but it wasn't like I'm not being friendly with her for a bad reason.
Right.
We share kids with the same person. So, you know what I mean? She was just there for me sometimes. And then if I ever wanted to see his children as well, she would never stop me from doing that. It's like, hey, like the girls want to see you. Do you want to take them? So I would come get them sometimes. I would take them to the park, bring them to my house. So I still had that bond with his kids.
Sure.
The mothers still let me have that bond.
Okay.
But
And
the other baby mom, the one that he got pregnant, we don't have that close of a bond. But she definitely, she's going through it. She's definitely going through it. She's like hurt, because he blocked her on all accounts of social media. She can't get through to him. She can't believe that he hasn't never reached out to her, knowing that he knows that she's pregnant. Instead, he tells people that she ruined his life.
so she's pregnant now.
No, this was when she was pregnant. And now that she
Okay.
actually just had the baby. The baby's probably about a month old, I want to say. A month, maybe a little over a month.
This guy's getting busy.
Oh, yeah, he does.
This guy's getting busy. So it goes to show you too that like there must be something like charming about some of these guys for all of these women to be like falling for it. And it's
He's
not
very,
just what's that?
that he's very charming.
Right. And I don't say that to smear of the women who do, but it's just something that like it should be said that
Yeah.
it does happen that way. Now,
Mhm.
what was his family dynamic like? Like, did he have like was he a golden child? Was he more like on neglected side or abused?
He so I do know something. I don't know if I should like necessarily speak about all of it.
No, you don't have to share that then if you don't want to talk about that.
Yeah, it's the family dynamic. It's toxic. They're all toxic.
I gotcha. Because depending on the dynamic, right? Like the ways that I see people become narcissistic is either they were the golden child put on the pedestal, coddled, given all sorts of love, admiration, but too much so. Or it's usually the opposite, abused, neglected, and our feelings didn't matter. But there's many different avenues to someone becoming narcissistic. There's not just one avenue, right? There's multiple different ways.
Well, I know he was neglected when he was a little boy,
Right.
by his mother, and his grandma took on the responsibility on raising him. But now he will use that almost as an excuse for some of his behaviors that he does. And then now that he's older, he's definitely more of the golden child to his mom. So his mom enables
I see.
thing that he does. And he's also like, I don't know, like he'll say things about her like she was never a good mom and this and that. But then as soon as like me and him would break up, he would run.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That,
So
de- that definitely makes sense. And all of that stuff there. So that's just, that's just how they roll sometimes. And yeah, it's not too good. Not too good. So do you have like a plan moving forward of the way you're going to co-parent with him in the future?
Um, I'm still in like my healing process right now, like trying to get through it. So probably in the future, I'm gonna just try to understand that it's only about the child now. So just try to, do the co-parenting and stuff like that. But yeah, right now it's just still too hard.
I got you. I mean, what I would say, if you'd like, my suggestions would be you just keep it to just the kid, like you said.
Yeah,
Like, don't even think about getting personal, like sharing about your life. Because even if you like started dating or something, it wouldn't do you much good to
right.
tell him about that, right? He'd probably be upset,
Yeah,
try to sabotage it in some way or some other tomfoolery. But you just keep things to the kid. Does he try to like get emotional reactions out of you now?
Yeah. Yeah, I would say so. A lot.
Well, then okay. So the no Jade, don't justify, argue, defend, explain, gray rock, no emotional reactions, least amount of contact necessary, probably.
Yeah.
Those I say them all the time, but those are the solutions that because there really is no better way. I just people can try. People say, "Oh, it's too artificial to do that," or a narcissistic person might say, "Oh, that's gray rock's abusive," or not having emotional reactions. That's being that's like a silent treatment. It's like no, it's not. It's just acts of self love for someone because they have to take care of themselves. They have to do what's best for themselves in a situation. But I've heard narcissistic people, they'll try to twist and distort all of that stuff. Or they'll say, oh, going no contact is the silent treatment. And you
Mhm.
see how they'll twist it? Like, yeah, I can see how they might try to do that, but they are two very different things.
Yeah.
Like, no contact is a response to someone else's abuse. Silent treatment is when you're unhappy with someone, but you have a lot of emotional immaturity and you're childish, so you're trying to punish them,
Right.
usually to control or manipulate them in some way.
Mhm.
So it's like little things, but if you're not prepared for it, they can really they can take you around the ringer.
Yeah. Which I do. I try to do the whole no contact thing, but once we do, contact about the child, or I'll let him take her, things like that. I'll just get like little love bombing things like, thank you so much. And, she's such our blessing. I mean, just certain things that he says, and it kind of like gets into your mind a little bit. So it's like, well, what's he mean by that? So now like you're questioning, well, like, is he like being nice because he misses you, or is he being nice because he's trying to co-parent, or there's just like certain things.
But you see, the fact that it's even got you thinking like that,
Yeah.
that's exactly where he wants you,
Yeah. I think that's why he does it.
right? So it's like I hate to be so black and white with it, but it's like you just got to really shut it off. Like if you really know he's like narcissistic and no good, at
Yeah.
least for a romantic relationship, it's like you can't give it any oxygen at all.
Yeah.
Because if you give it a little bit of oxygen, that's how the door can open a little bit. It
Hmm.
opens slowly. But then when you start thinking like that, that's exactly what they want you to start doing.
Yeah.
And but that's when the door's been open. But how has the recovery process been for you? Like because it hasn't been that long for you. So how has it been going?
Not good. I would say not good. I try. I have like my good days, but I have probably more bad days than I do good, because I'm
Well, what are they like?
depressing. Very depressing. I'm always like calling, a friend or a family member. I still cry. I still, when I go to bed at night, I have anxiety. I have anxiety really bad, actually. It's very high. In the mornings, I can't sleep at night. I have nightmares. It's rough. It's it's really rough. I just can't like, I can't let go of like everything that I've been through. I'm still having a hard time letting go because my brain still remembers the good. I have a hard time remembering the bad. Very hard. I just want to keep remembering the good parts.
Right.
But and then I start getting depressed and anxiety because I'm thinking about, the abuse and putting his hands on me and the marks that I used to have and the cheating, and why did I have to go through that, or why was I never enough, or why do all these women always get your attention when I'm the one who's been consistently there for you for absolutely everything, even after everything I've been through. It's always just been me supporting him, being there for him whenever he needed. He'd call, I run. So it's just it's a rocky road for me right now. That,
Sure. Well, I think you're doing the right things with it because the more honest you are about your thoughts and feelings, that's the road to recovery right there.
mhm.
And it's a lot like a drug withdrawal,
That's how,
where it's like a drug and you're in withdrawal from the substance, but the
mhm.
substance is a person in
Yeah.
this case. And one of the suggestions I have for people in your spot is like whenever you catch yourself like opening the door in your head, like to maybe when he leaves one of those little love bomby type comments, is to write down all those things, all the ways that he treated you poorly, all the abuse and the disrespect, the cheating, all that kind of stuff. So that whenever you thinking about the good, you go back and you refer to that list. It's
Right.
like, you know what? Do I really want to do this? And it seems like, again, forced to have to do it that way. But in my own experience, that does really help. Where when you catch yourself thinking about the good, because in my own life, yeah, there was certainly good that I had with partners that were no good for me. Like it
Hmm.
wasn't all bad. I had fun. I got things I wanted from the relationship. But at the end of the day, it would always end the same way anyway.
Right.
And I couldn't get past. I'd be disrespecting myself to go
Yeah.
back. And
Yeah.
that's just the way it is, right? So writing down all that stuff, I think would really benefit you so that whenever you catch yourself going down that road, you refer back to that list and it can kind of restore you to sanity a little bit.
Yeah, I need to. I've been told to do that a couple times, but I just haven't
It
got
helps.
myself to do it.
Well, that's your internal resistance.
I know. I
That's
know.
the part of you probably that doesn't want to let go.
Yep. That's exactly what it is. Yep.
So when you do it, though, yeah, the part of you that doesn't want to do it is probably the part that does want to be confronted with all those bad things that he did,
Hmm.
because then it'll be much harder for you, for that part of you who doesn't want to let go. It'll be much harder for that side to actually be taken in by the love bombing again. But
Yeah.
as long as you like separate it and you don't think about that abusive side, then the part that wants to be love bombed can win.
Yeah.
But when you really get it in there, and again, this is hard no matter what you do, right? Doing this isn't a foolproof way, but I think it's just one of those things that would help.
Yeah.
It would help or it couldn't hurt to put it that way. It
Yeah.
won't hurt. And I guess other like not uh, with like self-inflicted wounds, for example, like stalking the social media. Do you do that?
Sometimes.
You know what? And that's what I would consider like a self-inflicted wound, right? Where I totally get it why people do it, but it certainly doesn't help. Like,
Yeah, I think so. In my case, it's really hard because I hate being looked at as like a bad person or like I did anything wrong in the relationship because I didn't. But like he constantly posts on social media as if I'm like this horrible person and I've never gave him love or I just the things that he posts it just really like bothers me. And then he says different things to me like I'm so
right.
thankful that you're the one that picked me up and made me who I am and just did everything that you did for me. I wouldn't, he's so nice to me like as I was so great to him, but on social media it's the complete opposite.
Who's playing the victim
Yes, like really really bad.
and
So
smearing you?
I stalk it a lot as well because I don't like that victim. I don't like that victim look that he's doing. So when he does that, it's almost like I need to prove that he's playing victim almost in a way. You know what I mean?
Right? I get it. But you see, that's also like Jade. Like when that's his way to prompt you without, maybe he doesn't even know you're doing it, but he probably does know. So when he does that, and he knows if you're going to look at the page, you'll be tempted to like justify, argue, defend, and explain yourself to get the image right, to
Right.
get your side out there.
Hmm.
But in reality, like the way through is to completely surrender it and let go, because you can't control how people are going to see you. So if he's going to paint a picture of you and basically do a smear campaign, the people who are good friends of yours, they're not going to be taken in by that. The
Right.
only people who would be taken in by that are people who aren't really that close to you anyway. Like
Yeah.
people who are like the flying monkeys of him, yeah, they'll probably believe it. But the flying monkeys to him they're not really friends of yours. Now, granted though, when there's kids involved, that does change it because, you know, your daughter's family is some of these people here too. So it certainly adds layers of complexity to the whole situation. But I think, unfortunately, for a lot of people, when they try to disprove smear campaigns, it doesn't usually go too well for them. The
Right.
best way to go is just to like act how you want to act. Like, so, just do you. And that would do more to disprove a smear campaign than any sort of justification or arguing, defending, or explaining could, if that makes sense.
No, it does. That's what I've been trying to get
Oh, it's
there.
hard. Don't get me wrong. I know it's hard. It's very, because they know just the things to say and the things to try to trigger you
Mm-hmm.
into wanting to like explain yourself and your side of the story.
Yeah.
And that's why I say, like, just tuning it out is the way to go, because it'll hurt you.
Yeah.
Seeing it too much would just hurt you
Mm-hmm.
unnecessarily.
Nope, I agree. I agree to that 100%. It's been rough.
I bet. I mean, that's what the trauma bond is, right? The trauma bond is not going to be easy, but I think the more emotional distance you get, the better it will get for you. Like little small improvements, little bits at a time. That's what really does the most amount of help, right? Where
Yeah.
slowly but surely it will get better.
Yeah.
Now, have you dated at all since this guy or no?
Not really. I have a hard time dating since him. I'll come across a couple people, but I just I can't there's always something wrong that I don't like about them. And everyone,
What
you're, like my friends will say, it's because you're not healed yet and you're not over him yet, and things like that. So you're gonna look at everything that's wrong.
could be?
I mean, it's not only necessarily just doing that. I just psych myself out. I'm I'm just not ready to do that. There would be, pretty nice, decent guys, but I just can't. I'm just so traumatized from what I've been through already that my heart just don't let me do it.
Well, there's nothing wrong with that, I would say. Where, taking time for yourself, it's never usually a bad thing, right? I can only be bad if you're becoming more avoidant, I guess. But for the most part, being single to heal, there's nothing wrong with that at all.
Yeah. And I think I look for red flags too much now too.
There
So
could be, yeah.
as soon as that person gives me a red flag that he had, it's just I'm automatically okay, never mind.
And that's where the balance would come into play too, right? Where there's severity of red flags and consistency too, right? Because someone might do one thing, but that's a little different than someone doing a lot of behaviors bad, right? Because anyone can have a bad day, but
Mm-hmm.
consistency and patterns of behavior, those are the things to really watch out for.
Yeah.
And the other thing I've seen is hard for women sometimes is with when it comes to getting over narcissistic guys, is healthy guys can seem more boring to them.
Mm-hmm.
And that can be a struggle for them too, where there's just not that excitement
Yeah.
because, I mean, abusive relationships, you can say what you want about them, but there's certainly some ups and downs. There's
Mm-hmm.
an emotional roller coaster that I think people get kind of hooked on those. And this happens to guys too, with women who are more on the toxic side. But getting to that point where normal, healthy, can be sometimes a little more boring
Yeah.
is what it is. What's that?
I've used that term before times.
Yeah, so I think just recognizing that, and that's not to say that it's going to be always dull and boring. It's just in comparison,
Yeah.
in comparison to a narcissistic relationship, it's going to seem a little more flat, probably.
Yeah. And I mean, I do want to date. I'm not saying I don't want to because of him, because I do. Really honestly do. I want to be treated right and, to find the right person and to be loved and stuff. I don't know. Ever since the past, I can't find it.
Well, like you said, it hasn't been that long for you.
Mhm.
So perhaps this is just part of your journey right now and you're where you're supposed to be. You're supposed to be single for now. And when that's supposed to change, you'll know.
Yeah.
Maybe someone that is meant to be in your life, you'll think differently when they show up and like you're in a good spot for it.
Yeah, I agree to that. I would say. Yeah.
Well, is there anything else you wanted to share here about your experience with him or co-parenting or just maybe anything else we didn't mention yet?
Um, I would say abuse. Um, narcissistic narcissism can be like really abusive too, like not just verbally, but like also physically.
Sure.
It's also another thing that I had to go through with him. Anytime, I caught him with girls and stuff like that, he started to get more and more abusive and then would start putting his hands on me and I got blamed, so I almost went into like a wave of feeling like it was okay that he did that because I would be blamed why he did that. You know,
So he'd blame you for his abuse because you called him out for cheating?
basically that's how it would always go. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's
You're crazy and, things like that. That's
not now this is one thing we didn't mention either, but I know I always say to people that they got to have a plan when leaving in those kinds of situations, ideally, because they can be dangerous. Like when there's physical abuse involved, leaving that kind of dynamic can be a dangerous situation.
yeah,
So, like letting friends, family, maybe even law enforcement know, that's important because sometimes people do get killed
right.
leaving these kinds of toxic situations. Now, of course, it's not the norm, but I mean, even once is something you got to pay attention to. And I know when I used to work for like the mental health hotline or volunteer, I should say, that's the one thing that I'd always say. Like, if you hear someone that's in an abusive situation, you don't tell them just to leave. You got to tell them to make a plan to leave and make sure they have their bases covered so that they're going to be safe.
Right, right. Oh, for sure. But that's what my mom used to tell me a lot, actually. She used to give that same advice.
So even in this situation, though, so this guy would be physically abusive to you,
Hmm.
and yet you kind of have like cognitive dissonance. There's still a part that wants that love bombing to be true, or
Yeah.
wants to give that love bombing a shot.
Hmm.
So, but again, this is what the trauma bond is, right? Where there's two conflicting ideas at once. Where on one hand you think there can be this great thing, and on the other hand, it's like, actually, no, there was a lot of gaslighting, abuse, invalidating, cheating, and all this other stuff. So it is important to see that for what it is
Yeah.
and to not hide from it because that's certainly not something to brush under the rug.
Yeah. Yep. Which
And
that,
no one deserves that.
no. And that whole, when he moved to Florida thing, that was, he had put his hands on me right before that, actually. So he still to this day blames and says that he moved to Florida because of me to get away from me. He had a job that he had, and we had gotten into a fight one morning. He was leaving to go to that job. Well, he came back to the house and he basically, I had plans with a friend to go get food that day. And he texted me and said, if you leave, or what did the text message say? Watch what happens when you leave. And he came back to the house and he said, I don't even care if you call the cops. And he put his hands on me, strangled me, put marks all over my body, took my purse, took my car keys, but I had a spare key that obviously he didn't know that I had on me. And I didn't know where the job was that he was working at. So I was trying to get a hold of the lady that he was working for and try to explain to her what was going on. I need to know the address because I need my purse that had all of my belongings, my credit cards, my ID. I mean, who wouldn't want that back?
Right.
So I had contacted the lady that he was working for and I said, I need the address. told her what happened and stuff, and he still to this day blames me that that's the reason why he lost that job, because I reached out to her, and so he's moving to Florida.
Darvo.
Yeah.
So what you hear there is a lot of the defend, accused, reverse victim, and defender. This guy's done this to you a lot,
Yeah.
where you'll call him out for something, and all of a sudden it winds up with him being the victim and something you've done wrong.
Yeah.
Which, if anyone sees that happening in their relationship, big red flag. Big
Mm.
red flag. That's not supposed to be how it goes, right?
Right.
Like, just something to pay attention to.
Guilty. I felt guilty for that in a way, like, oh man, I took a job from him, so but and then I would try to explain to him, like, that's you're you know what I mean, like, you're being so manipulative right now, because I only reached out to that lady because you stole my stuff. Like, you came and put your hands on me, and then you stole my belongings, so what was I supposed to do? Just sit there and twiddle my thumbs?
Right.
So I didn't reach out to this lady to make him lose that job, but I needed my stuff back. That's all I was trying to get to.
Right. I mean, and part of being in the trauma bond is being subscribed to their reality a little bit. And
Mhm.
when you're subscribed to their reality, that is when you second guess yourself more. That is when you question yourself and you'll start explaining yourself to them, which is
Mhm.
why I said the big thing, unsubscribing from their reality. That part is huge. And then you really see things for what they are and
Yeah.
say, you know what? I don't need to be explaining myself to him. I have the respect for myself to know, yeah, I don't deserve to be cheated on. I don't deserve to be physically abused, mentally abused either, for that matter. And like really coming to believe that about yourself.
Yep.
And, for people, their actions will show for sure whether they truly believe that or not. And
Yep.
unfortunately, for a lot of people, their actions don't believe that.
Right.
And you know that because if someone consistently goes back, they're still in the grip. They're
Mhm.
still in the grip of that. So, and again, I don't say this to make it seem like it's easy or something. It is like breaking a drug addiction, but you got to get to that level of self respect where you won't even be able to believe it. Like maybe a year from now, you look back at your life and like, wow, I couldn't even believe that I was entertaining some of this love bombing thoughts in those text messages, right? It'll just seem ridiculous.
Right. Right. Yeah.
So, and I think you can see where I bet you in a year or two, that's where your thinking will be. But, you're certainly not alone with this either. There's a lot of people, and I hear them all the time. Like the people that reach out to me from coaching, and
Mhm.
just other people who just tell me about their situations. There's a lot of people in your situation, and they just got to break free from it a little bit.
Yeah.
And the more time that goes by, the better they get.
That's where I want to be.
While you're doing all the right things to get there, so
Mhm.
I say just make sure you write down that list. Write down the list of all the ways he's treated you poorly.
Yeah, I will. I'll probably do that tonight.
That'd be good. That'd be good. But I truly believe also, like people who come on this show, like you share your story to help others, but it certainly probably helps you too,
Right.
right? And it helps me. It helps me even when I'm talking to somebody about, I remind myself how I should be acting in some ways. So it helps everybody.
Oh, for sure. For sure. And there's so much too. Like, I wish I could go all the way back from the beginning all the way to the end, because it's so much. People will look at me like, what the heck? Like,
I'm sure.
you let all that happen to you? And, I say it to myself sometimes too, but not
Right.
get back
Right.
to dark thought.
Yeah, if you were to share it all to someone, it would probably make you cringe, like even having to say it all. But,
Hmm.
it doesn't happen all overnight. Like
Right.
it's always like that frog in a boiling pot analogy. Slowly but surely, the heat gets turned up, where it doesn't start with physical abuse, right? It doesn't start with like really massive gaslighting and devaluing. It starts something small.
Right.
Like with you, it was, oh, you don't need an expensive wedding. It was something small. And
Yeah.
then that temperature gets cranked up so that before you know it, he's blaming you for him cheating on you. Right.
Hmm.
And that's why that frog in a boiling pot analogy is so accurate.
Yeah. Hmm. He used to even have like police and everything. Like, he was so good with his words that even they would believe him, when like police would get called, and it was crazy.
Well, they're good at tricking people.
Hmm.
Well, they have a good shallow like personality game where people that they don't really know, they get taken in by them a little bit because oftentimes they can be like fun and charismatic.
Hmm.
So people who don't really know them, they give them the benefit of the doubt a
Oh
lot
yeah.
of times. And I've heard this happen to people. They'll go to therapy and they'll fool therapists, especially the covert kinds, but they'll fool therapists, they'll fool family sometimes and friends for a while. But that likable thing and that charismatic thing, it covers up for a lot.
Yeah. I always tell people they're very, very good at what they do.
Yeah.
Very.
And that's one of the things that's very frustrating for the people that are in your situation where people don't see it, right?
Hmm.
They don't see how they treat you behind closed doors. They only see what they see in public. And
Yeah.
the image they're portraying in public often completely different than what's going on behind closed doors. And social media is very conducive to this too, right? Where someone posts all sorts of things. What they're posting can have almost no basis in reality into what's going on in that person's life. They're only sharing what they want you to know and
Right.
then what they want you to see.
Yep. And I still catch myself doing it, but I'll even like reach out to, like other women that, he's talking to, and I'll tell them, I'll try to warn them that this is not what he is. So what he's pretending to be, that's not him. Some fall for it. Some, listen to what I say and run. But
Oh, they've actually listened to you. I'm surprised.
yeah, there's a couple of them. There's one that's really listened, and she literally was like, goodbye. She was like, I'm not, yeah, I don't want nothing to do with that. But and then, there's more, like there's somebody else that he screwed, her brain as well. So she never even dated him, but she's also in the same situation that I'm in. She's trying to get out of the trauma bond with him because he's just so good with his words.
Right.
And I used to tell him too, I'm like, you're making these women fall for you. Like, why are you doing that? And he'd say, no, I'm not doing anything to make them fall for me. I tell them that we're just friends. No, you're not. You're calling them baby. You're calling them sweetheart. You're taking them on dates. You're buying them flowers. You're sleeping with them. You're putting them in your future plans. And
Future faking.
yes, trying to get them pregnant. And like, that's just not a friend. So how can they view you as just a friend if you're treating them as more?
Right.
So that's something that a lot of the girls that he talks to has trouble with.
Yeah, I was surprised because I mean, I would normally say to people, don't even bother trying to save the new supply from them because most of them are going to have to learn the hard way.
Right. Which is what I'm learning now. Like now I'm just like, I need to stop. Like I need to just stop warning people and just let it just.
Well, mostly just for your own peace,
Right.
right? Because if you get sucked, yeah. I mean, I think doing something like this could potentially help more people than you saving or reaching out to a girl that's in his grasp now. Because a lot of them, they're just not going to want to. They're not going to want to hear it for one, and that's why I'm surprised one of the girls did listen to you. But normally I would say that's more rare. Most people are going to have to learn for themselves, probably, if
Right.
they're in that situation. But hey, just normally though, just not having to deal with it at all, just like paying it no mind for your benefit is
Right.
probably the best way to go.
Absolutely. Learning every day.
Yeah, there you go.
Every day.
All right, Miss Destiny. It's been great having you on here. I think we've talked about a lot of good topics here. We've covered a lot of ground. And again, anything else that you think's relevant that you wanted to share about before we go?
No, I think we covered a lot. I mean, there's a lot more that could be covered, but we'd be on here all night.
Well, we can maybe do a round 2 one day. And I appreciate you doing a lot of the talking here because, like I said, I have been not feeling very good.
No,
So I appreciate you picking up the slack for me.
oh, you're okay. You're doing great.
All right, Destiny. Thanks again for coming on. And I'm used to having other like creators on here. I was gonna say, where can people find you? I
Yeah.
was like, no, you don't need to be asked that.
Yeah.
All
Well,
right. So thank you very much, and thanks for watching, everybody. Share this video with others that you think might benefit, and remember to like the video too if you liked it, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. So with that, thank you very much for watching.